All right, so AI optimization is done. That was a hefty course. So that was the third to last course I had to do as part of the computer science curriculum, and it was a lot. So it was four different tasks you had to do, and pretty much what this goes over is the basics of machine learning and data science. So you're given a data set and a specific scenario, and you have to apply a machine learning model to that problem to resolve it. And then after you get a baseline on its performance, then you have to like what's called adjust it, tune it so that it performs even better, and then compare the results from you know the the, the baseline to like the optimized version. So you're optimizing your model. And if you like me don't have any background in data science, like yeah, it's gonna be rough. And this was tough. So there's four different tasks, and the first one actually isn't too bad. It's mainly coding. So what I used for the first task was this website, really good website. It's called Kaggle, Kaggle.com, and it's a platform for data scientists, data analysts, as well as machine learning engineers. And when you go on the website, and I'll link it in the description, you have to click on uh, courses, and then in the beginner section they have uh, machine learning introductory course, and that whole course, like all the code that's in that course, is essentially what task one is asking you to do. So it was actually fairly straightforward. If you just follow those steps, you can even use that code and just have it in your baseline. So task one was fairly straightforward. It's in in Python, and then you use GitLab for your version control. So again, make sure you're good on Python. It's the most common language used for machine learning and data science, just because of its extensive community that it offers, as well as all the different modules that are extremely helpful for data science. It's just like NumPy, Matplotlib, um, Seaborn, SciPy, Pandas. That's a big one. So yeah, make sure you're good on Python. Kaggle also has courses on Python if you need to get back up to speed with Python, and then as well as courses on Pandas. You don't necessarily need to do the Pandas course, but you know it'd be really good. Kind of just with Pandas, I kind of just like winged it honestly. But yeah, that's task one, is just create a baseline model and then just evaluate it. Task two, that's the optimizing part. So that's where you have to use what's called hyperparameter tuning as well as regularization to optimize the model and have it perform even better against the metrics that you picked out. That's another thing too. You have to pick out how you want to evaluate the model. There's different metrics you can use, and once you picked out those metrics, then you're going to tune the model, adjust it so that it performs even better. So task two is also coding. You're just adding additional code and just making it better, making the model better. Task three. Task three isn't necessarily coding. You can, but you don't need to. So with task three, you do what's called an exploratory data analysis. So you go over the data that you're given. Oh, and by the way, the scenario is that you have this environmental like regulatory company, and there's a bunch of like pollutants and shit. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to see what environmental factors have the biggest impact on the health of the general public. So things like temperature, pollutants in the air, wind speed, humidity. Those are the only things that kind of. There's a lot more than that, but there are more things to it, like the feels like temperature. Um, yeah, there's a lot more than that, but those are the only things that come to mind right now. But yeah, pretty much the environmental regulatory agency is trying to look at data set of all these different environmental variables and then see which ones have the biggest impact on public health and just identify those patterns and trends. And you're given this big old data set to use for your model. But yeah, for task three, you want to conduct exploratory data analysis, and there's different using specifically matplotlib. That's the perfect Python module to do that because you can get a bunch of bar charts, box and whiskers plots, scatter plots. Um, there's a lot more Venn diagrams. Like there's a matplotlib is incredibly helpful for for data analysis just because there's so many different visual representations that you can use for your data. So that's it for task 3. Again, there's actually you don't really have to code, but the reason you would want to is so that you can code all of those visual diagrams and then paste those diagrams into your paper. Task 3 is mainly a writing assignment, but it will definitely help your case to have some sort of visual diagrams and put those into your paper to support whatever it is that you're claiming. And like, you know, the claims that you're making are like, hey, this factor has a bigger impact on public health based, as you can see from the chart. You want the charts to back up what you're saying, basically. But again, task 3 is mainly a writing assignment, but it's long. Task 3 is a long writing assignment. There's a lot that you have to do for task 3. But that's pretty much it for that. And then for task 4, it's a much shorter writing assignment, but it's still another writing assignment. And what you're pretty much doing is you don't actually have to code anything. It's just writing, but you have to come up with a different use case where you can use the machine learning model that you used for the original case, and you have to come up with a new case for using that model. So you would define what the problem is, how the model would help in solving the problem, and then what different requirements are needed for the project and all stuff like that, constraints as well. So you're just talking about how I would use the model for a different problem. Task 4, you got to be very specific. You got to throw some like specific numbers in there. Be very specific with what your specific problem requires. But that's all 4 tasks in a nutshell. That's a lot of stuff, man. And what I've noticed with data structures and algorithms too, and AI optimization, is that the tasks are taking longer to come back. So like before, the turnaround time officially on paper was 3 days, but I would get them back in like 1 and 2 days, sometimes even 1. Like the turnaround time was a lot faster for previous classes. But what I'm noticing for the non-transferable courses, so data structures, algorithms 2, AI optimization, advanced AI, capstone, but those 4 classes specifically, the turnaround time is actually longer. It's a lot longer. It's like about 3 days, like on the dot. I've had actually, I think my task 2 of AI optimization, I think that was actually like over 3 days, like 3.5 days, something like that. So the turnaround time is actually a lot slower for these kinds of classes. So what I'd recommend for sure is to really go over that rubric, make sure you're squared away and good to go before you turn in, because if you don't pass the first time, you're going to wait another 3 days to get it reevaluated. So make sure you're 100% good. I would recommend even showing your work. And this is what I'm going to do with my capstone. I'm currently working on the capstone right now, like the very final class, is to send your work to the instructors first, have them give you the green light to submit it, and then submit it, just because of how slow the turnaround time is for evaluations. But yeah, in terms of difficulty, I would rate this class about an 8 out of 10. Yeah, I'd give it about an 8 out of 10. I don't think the concepts were too hard, but what made it tricky was how much that the course material sucked. The course material is trash, so I wouldn't use that. And just how much of a learning curve there is, if you know nothing about data science or machine learning. But that's my assessment for that. Resources, I used Kaggle, obviously, for task 1. I used GeeksForGeeks, helped me a lot for task 2 when it comes to the hyperparameter tuning and optimizing the model, because Kaggle doesn't have code for that specific part, but GeeksForGeeks did. So Kaggle, GeeksForGeeks, and then I watched a lot of the cohorts from one of the instructors. His name is Rob Ferdinand. Great instructor. I highly recommend him. Solid. I watched a lot of his cohorts. I didn't watch all of them, just the ones that I specifically needed help with, which was the tuning. But yeah, he has cohorts on every specific coding task that you have to do. They're a little long. I think they're over like 30 minutes each. but just watch the ones that specifically apply to whatever you need help with. So yeah, the cohorts from that specific instructor, Kaggle, and then GeeksForGeeks. Those were the 3 resources that I highly recommend you use. And then of course I also used Reddit. I'll link the most useful Reddit post that I have found in the description. But that's all I got for AI optimization. I'm almost done with advanced AI, so that video will actually come up fairly soon. And it's actually, the good news is for you guys that it's actually a lot easier. You would think it'd be harder because it's advanced AI, but it's actually a lot easier than AI optimization. There's a lot less you have to do. So that video will be coming up fairly soon. But yeah, that's all I have to say about AI optimization. Talk soon.